that it was, because I knew it was a very bold thing to try to pull off.
At 71 years old, John Travolta did something so quiet, so subtle that most people missed it at first, but the ones closest to him felt it immediately, because this wasn't a press announcement or a dramatic farewell. It was a pattern, a shift in behavior that looked like preparation, like someone slowly closing doors without saying why. And in Hollywood, where nothing is ever accidental, that silence spoke louder than any headline ever could. Over the past year, friends noticed him giving away items he had guarded for decades, personal things tied to memories, moments, and people he loved most, not randomly, but deliberately, almost ceremonially. And when he recorded what he called a final message to fans, carefully choosing his words, pausing longer than usual, people around him felt a chill they couldn't explain. His family tried not to panic, but fear has a way of seeping in when someone who has survived unimaginable loss starts talking like time is suddenly precious. The death hoaxes that flooded the internet in 2025 weren't just cruel rumors pulled from nowhere. They hit a nerve because they arrived at a moment when even John seemed to be saying goodbye in his own way. And whatever he discovered about his future, whatever truth he hasn't shared publicly, has left those closest to him quietly bracing for something they can't yet name. John Travolta's story has always been wrapped in movement, rhythm, and resilience, long before the world knew his name, back when he was born on February 18, 1954 in Inglewood, New Jersey, the youngest of 6 children in a household that lived on dreams more than money. His father, Salvatore Travolta, ran a small tire shop, working long hours with grease-stained hands to keep food on the table, while his mother, Helen, carried a different kind of weight, one filled with unrealized ambition, stage lights she once chased, and acting classes she taught to keep her connection to performance alive. Their home was never quiet, not because it was chaotic, but because it was alive, filled with music, rehearsals, voices rising and falling as Helen practiced scenes from My Fair Lady, Oklahoma, and The Sound of Music in the living room, turning ordinary nights into miniature productions. John watched her with wide eyes, absorbing every gesture, every note, every spark of joy that performance brought her, and something inside him responded instantly, like recognition rather than discovery. When he stepped onto a school stage for the first time and felt the audience react, the sound of applause hit him with physical force, not as ego, but as clarity, as if a door he didn't know existed suddenly swung open and showed him exactly where he belonged. Growing up in that house meant creativity was never optional. It was oxygen. John danced before he understood choreography, sang before he understood pitch, mimicked accents, gestures, and emotions instinctively, sometimes so dramatically that neighbors peeked through the windows just to see the smallest Travolta child commanding the room like it was his own stage. Yet outside those walls, the world was far less kind. School was brutal. John was bullied relentlessly for his thin frame, his soft voice, and a stutter that twisted his words into knots under pressure. Kids called him names, mocked the way he walked, laughed when he spoke, and most days he just wanted to disappear before lunchtime. But pain has a way of shaping talent when it finds the right outlet, and John found refuge at home, where he turned humiliation into humor, acting out scenes for his siblings, exaggerating characters until laughter replaced shame. His mother saw it immediately and pushed him toward theater not as escape, but as transformation, a way to turn vulnerability into strength. By the time he reached high school, something remarkable happened. When John stepped onto a stage, the stutter vanished, the fear dissolved, and people watched him differently, as if the room belonged to him now. And that contrast between who he was offstage and who he became under the lights would define his entire life. His first true awakening came at just 12 years old, when Helen directed a community play and cast him in a small role. The part was modest, almost forgettable on paper, but the moment John stepped out, instinct took over. He bent the lines, added humor, shifted tones, slipped accents where none were written, and the audience erupted. Applause grew louder, longer, until it turned into a standing ovation so unexpected it stunned the adults backstage. John froze, overwhelmed not by pride, but by certainty, because in that moment he understood something most people spend a lifetime searching for. That feeling followed him everywhere. At 16, against his parents' wishes, he dropped out of Dwight Morrow High School and moved to New York City with a small bag, almost no money, and nothing resembling a safety net. He lived in a YMCA room that cost $1 a night, washed dishes, delivered flowers, cleaned wherever he could, snuck into free acting classes during the day, and returned at night to that narrow bed, repeating one promise to himself over and over: survive one more day. He believed struggle meant progress, that the city would eventually open a door if he kept knocking long enough. Training at the neighborhood Playhouse School of the Theater under voice coach Dan Sullivan changed him fundamentally. Sullivan saw raw potential, but warned him bluntly that talent alone wouldn't save him, that the industry would break him unless he built armor thicker than ambition. The training was intense, emotional, exhausting. He learned breath control, physical discipline, emotional access, and slowly, painstakingly, the stutter faded. He carried Sullivan's warning like a compass through every high and low that followed. That same year, he landed his first paid acting job in Bye Bye Birdie at the Cherry Lane Theater, earning $75 a week, studying older actors, memorizing everything, learning how to command attention in silence as much as speech. Success didn't come smoothly. Off-Broadway work disappeared as quickly as it arrived. He slept on park benches, walked city blocks hoping someone might cast him, learned firsthand how brutally fast the industry lifts and drops people without apology. Still, he refused to quit. The turning point arrived with the national tour of Grease, then Broadway's Over Here, where his voice surprised him even, where stage fright slowly gave way to confidence, where industry doors began opening one by one. Commercial work followed, steady money for the first time, a small apartment, a sense of survival was becoming momentum. Rejection still hurt deeply, especially when he lost Godspell after a botched callback, but failure became fuel. Acting coach Milton Casellas pushed him deeper emotionally, forcing him to access parts of himself he hadn't touched before. And that discipline paid off when Welcome Back, Kotter changed everything. Eddie Barbarino wasn't just a role, it was lightning. He walked into the audition sweaty, nervous, chewing gum, but when he read, the room locked in. Fame came fast, violently fast. His face was everywhere. His walk became iconic. But beneath the surface, he was still that kid who learned early that attention could vanish just as quickly as it arrived. Then came the role that rewired pop culture itself. Saturday Night Fever didn't just make John Travolta a star, it turned him into a symbol. The walk, the suit, the dance floor confidence hiding desperation underneath, all of it connected. He trained obsessively, pushed through injury, endured endless takes, bled on concrete floors, while the Bee Gees soundtrack exploded globally, merging his identity with an era. Fame became overwhelming, offers flooded, endorsements dangled millions, but John feared becoming a caricature, feared being frozen as the disco guy forever. He turned down roles, chased music, tried to control his image in a world that wanted to own it. Grease only intensified that pressure, transforming him into the highest-paid actor in Hollywood almost overnight, while behind the scenes he quietly processed devastating news, his mother's cancer. He finished scenes carrying grief he never spoke about publicly, letting it bleed into performance instead. What followed were extreme highs and brutal collapses, missed opportunities like Superman and Top Gun, risky choices, massive flops, stunning comebacks, financial battles, reinventions through Pulp Fiction, Get Short, Face Off, moments where improvisation saved scenes, and near-death experiences in the air reminded him how fragile everything really was. but nothing reshaped him like personal loss. The death of his son, Jet, in 2009 shattered whatever illusion of control he still held. Performing CPR on his own child, testifying publicly about that moment, stripped him of celebrity armor forever. When Kelly Preston died in 2020 after a private battle with cancer, the grief compounded. She wasn't just his wife, she was his anchor through instability, criticism, and collapse. Her absence changed the rhythm of his life. Friends noticed him moving slower, speaking differently, laughing less, reflecting more. And now, in 2025, the signs have grown impossible to ignore. The quiet gestures, the giving away of cherished items, the reflective videos, the way he talks about time, about joy, about presence, as if he's measuring something invisible. He still works, still dances, still flies planes for charity, still mentors young actors. But beneath it all, there's a softness that feels like acceptance rather than ambition. Maybe he's confronting mortality in a way only someone who has already buried the people they loved most can. Maybe he's simply choosing peace. Or maybe John Travolta knows something about his future that he isn't ready to share. Something that reframes every goodbye, every message, every